All right. Looks like we are officially live. Little background noise there, but uh, guys, people are going to be joining on fairly quickly right now. We have Councilman Elias Diaz here joining us tonight. Councilman, I know it was a short notice with this podcast, and we appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a busy schedule, a lot of things going on in your life right now, and congratulations on all that. But we thought it was very relevant, being that everything that is happening right now with continuous threats being done in our school. I know we try to schedule a podcast a little bit sooner, but scheduling conflicts come up. But we're glad that you were able to take a little bit of time with us to discuss how it's affected our students and what we can do maybe moving forward to improve this situation. So, Councilman Diaz, quick introduction. Can you give us a little bit of background that qualifies you to actually speak about some of the stuff that we're going to talk about right now?
Yes, so I currently sit on the city council. I'm entering my last full term. Aside from my role on city council, I've had a long career in mental health services, everything including from individual therapy, group therapy, family therapy, couples therapy as well. And in my most recent work, I've been leveraging my two positions, the position that I have as a mental health clinician, and also, my role in city leadership, to be able to expand those initiatives, right? To bring community-grown solutions to the city of Eagle Pass. You might have seen some of our work through some of the coalition building that we've done around public health, children's mental health, uh, issues like domestic violence, civic engagement. And so there's been a lot of work that happens not just in the clinical setting, right? One of my biggest concerns is making sure that as a community, we're responding to those needs that are emerging, right? And so with the recent things that have happened, it's hit really close to home. So I think out of all the rules that I've just mentioned, I'm also a family man, right? I don't have children of my own, but I consider my nieces and nephews to be, very near and dear to my heart. And so, one of the perspectives that I want to offer now is my perspective as a parent, right? I serve as a very involved uncle in the lives of my nieces and nephews, and having a threat like this hit so close to home. I want to share a little bit about my perspective about how things have impacted my family and the way that things are affecting families all throughout the community, not just at Serna Elementary.
No, absolutely, and that's why we were trying to get a podcast with you. Because obviously you do have the background as a clinician with mental health. Not only that, but I mean, how else closer can it get than your own nephew being at the school? I mean, I can only imagine how concerning that is for you. I know if it was my own children there, they attend a different school, but I'd be just as concerned as you are. And I think all the parents here in our community are concerned about that situation as it happened. So, quick background of how it is: there was some certain threat that was given, letters were found, some sort of type of hit list or kill list were written on these items, as far as we know. Thanks also to Chief Amy Gonzalez from the Eagle Pass Police Department that let everybody know. And who knows if we would have known if it had not been for her releasing that information. But guide us a little bit about it. How did you find out about it, and what was your immediate reaction to what was going on?
So the first point of contact that I had with this piece of information was through a sorry. The first piece of information that I got through this was a communication, an official piece of communication that was put out by the El Paso Police Department, where it relayed that this was a threat that the police department had not been immediately notified on. The fact that it was at Southern Elementary, I hadn't I had not made contact with my sister yet, right? So that was the second point of contact that I had, right? I picked up the phone and asked, is this something that you already know about? And of course, the barriers to understanding, are the children okay? Can we pick up the children? The massive lines, right, of from parents finding out and wanting to pick up their children with due reason, right? I think that, I often think about the heartbreak of what happened in Uvalde. And I remember as I was looking through the pictures and of the victims in Uvalde, I was looking at, the pictures of the teachers. I remember in one conversation, reaching out to someone and someone had said to me, I'm so distraught because as I'm looking at these pictures, it looks like if I know them, right? Like it looks like if I know who these people are. And part of what I had to say back then was, like they're a part of us, right? They look like us. They probably have a very similar culture to us, a small town. A lot of what happened, I think as a community, we have a responsibility to um, hopefully learn from tragedies such as that, right? To make sure that we're taking note so that this does not happen in another community. And let me tell you something, Isaac. Like I know that as a politician, there's these certain rules of decorum, right? I don't want to say too much or I don't want to speak out because who knows who this is going to piss off, right? Or like who knows if how this is going to upset someone, and dancing this very delicate dance on how do I approach something, how do I balance being a concerned citizen, a concerned parent, with also making sure that we're not ruffling any feathers. And to me, it's so sad, right? Because I'm sure that if you would give the Uvalde community a chance to go back and say, I should have been a little bit louder about that, right? Like now that we have those reports, we find out that there was a door that had not been secured properly for a really long time. There were not metal detectors that were installed. There were all of these things that could have possibly prevented this from happening. And I don't know much about their culture, and I don't know much about how they were running the school district. But in retrospect, we can go back and say, if those things that had already been reported on, had they been addressed and followed, would we be in a different situation? So after already being scared and being in a situation where I felt like it was much less than ideal. I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was to see Superintendent Mijares go on an interview and say everything was fine, nothing was done wrong, protocol was followed, and we shouldn't have notified the city police department. And so I understand that there's protocols in place. I understand that there's things that we must follow, and every situation is going to be unique and different. But for me to see someone in a position such as that, to completely, and not just wash his hands, right? Not just wash his hands of the situation that had happened, but also to mock our chief of police, right? To say, what's her name, right? Like, and that was a very intentional dig, trying to say, this is this doesn't matter, right? Like so the level of disrespect with which he was treating this. I felt like it was a disrespect not just to the community, not just to the chief of police, but a huge disrespect to our students, right? Those students, there's been parents that have continued to reach out to me, people wanting answers. A lot of the times in a town like this, especially when, people don't exactly know how things work, or when they feel like they make a complaint, they try to advocate for themselves, and they meet a dead end, right, where they are kind of just bombarded with protocols and policies and procedures, but no action, right? When people just evade action, and I'm not talking about just action, because I know that there's been a suspension that has been that has come down. To me, I was, for me personally, I was in no way looking for a suspension, right? For me, what's the most important part in this is to make sure that we have a plan in place, not just. And I won't speak to protocol, I won't speak to policy because I'm not an expert on that. But I will speak to the fact that there is a strategic way to address parents, right? There's a strategic way to engage with our community and say, this is what went wrong. And that's the first step. And I think that's the step that we missed. We missed the part where administration really took a step back and said, this could have been handled differently, right? And so I think without that first step, we can't get to the next step. So what is the next step? The next step is addressing, making sure that the protocols are in place. But then there's a third and a fourth and a fifth step. Third step being, how do we mitigate the panic that this has caused in our community? So just to give you a little bit of context, and I know that everybody that lives in Eagle Pass and other communities, they know what's been going on in our community. Very shortly afterwards, we had another threat at Seguin Elementary. And very shortly afterwards, we had an actual shooting at at the casino, right? And so this is no longer just a threat. This is something that we're living with on a day in, day out basis. Parents are afraid to send their children to school. Parents are afraid, and they don't have the confidence in the school system to know this school system is going to be able to protect my children effectively. Now, as someone that works and has had multiple roles in administration, I'm the first to tell you we are not perfect. There's no way that no matter how many years we go to school, no matter how much practice we have, no matter what we do, there's no way that we can come to the community and say, you know what, I have everything down 100% of the time. We, just like everybody else, we make mistakes. And the only way to move forward is to, number one, acknowledge those mistakes and be able to say, I need to be able to collaborate with other entities. I need to be able to collaborate with other communities. I need to be able to be in a position that requires a lot of time and effort, right? And it requires a lot of time and effort to be able to invest in these things. For me personally, I feel like it's a lot of time and effort that when somebody is committed to their job, and when I mean when somebody is fully committed to their job, they don't have time to be meddling in other entities. They don't have time to be doing things that are out of the scope of their job, right? If you really want to serve the school, then serve the school, and that's going to take all of your time. And I assure you that I've seen, and I want to communicate to the community. I want people to pay attention. The amount of time investment that has been put into just the show, right? All the interviews that have come afterwards, all the meetings with no action, all of the things that have been put out to just simply say we did something. To me, that's not a real solution, right? To me, a real solution brings action. To me, a real solution brings training. It brings tangible solutions where parents are reassured, right? I know that there's been some question and answers done with the superintendent. There was, these town hall type of meetings. And my question is, what has actually come of that? What is the product of that? And how can we make sure that our students are being kept safe? My concern, part of it, and I'm going to be 100 transparent with you, part of it is for my nephew. That's a big part of why I'm doing this. But another part to that is to know that if this is affecting my family this way, and based on the testimony of the ways in which, and I'm not just talking about school shootings, I'm talking about the fights that happen at school, I'm talking
Yeah.
about the periods where there hasn't been people on duty, I'm talking about constant bullying, I'm talking about, people that come to me because they've had to leave the school because of the way that a bullying incident was mishandled or completely ignored. And unfortunately, for me, I mean, my nephew has me as an advocate, right? And not only does my nephew have me as an advocate, but he has me at a point where I am not concerned about my political career. I'm not concerned about being good with Mijares or anybody else. I'm not concerned with making people, happy in a context where I'm not ruffling feathers. I'm concerned with making sure that I'm protecting the safety and the well being of all students, with a very special emphasis on my nephew, right? Because I don't know what would happen if something were to happen, right? And when I think about, and the type of relationship that I have, when I think about these are kids, these are people that they maybe don't have a voice of their own, right? It's our responsibility as adults to say this is not right, fix it. And if we fix it, if we come to the table, we fix it. If we prioritize mental health, I'll tell you, years ago, when we first rolled out, or the school district first rolled out implementing mental health clinicians at the high schools, one of my first points to that was, I think it's a great first step. I would like to see this happen school wide. I see children in pre K and kindergarten. I see children in elementary school. I see so many people that continue to have these types of issues. This is not something that's specific just to um, high school, right? Um, where is that investment post COVID? Where is that investment into mental health? There's resources that are available, not just for mental health, but also for special education, right? Do we have a special plan in place that addresses how we would deal with this for our most vulnerable populations? I that's my question at this point. Do we have a way to deal with, yes, the general population, but what about the special education population? If we're not investing in basic infrastructure to make sure that our kids have ABA therapy, that have the resources that they need at every single campus, to make sure that that there's safety in place, what makes me feel safe enough that those campuses are going to be able to roll out a protocol? And now it's one thing to have a protocol, right? But what about execution? Do our children know what to do in a school setting? Do they know how to exit the classroom, or how, when not to exit the classroom? Like, are we doing scenario planning for the very ugly and real world that we live in right now?
No, and well said. I mean, I think that from what we have learned is that there wasn't a protocol at the time that this happened at Armando Serna. And after the fact that there was a protocol implemented, uh, after the fact that things are happened. Now, the whole Armando Serna, and I think you touched on it perfectly when you said in Armando Serna, the case, we really don't know what happened, who got suspended, what was done, what is being implemented now. But when you see somebody here at the Seguin Elementary, I mean, that kid was addressed right away. Now, a lot of things have to be, come into play in that the fact that, hey, well, what is the difference in these schools? Because to me, I think all elementary schools are equal or should be equal. And I think that that's where a lot of parents are concerned. And I do want to mention right now, those parents that are watching, there is going to be a meeting tomorrow on Monday. It's at 6 o'clock. I think that the school district tried to pull a fast one on us by switching the meeting because the regularly scheduled meeting, as per the calendar they have, is actually on the 14th on Tuesday. And it's a little fishy that all of a sudden it moved up a day to the 13th at 6 p.m. So that kind of gets people thinking, right? But can you touch a little bit about how this can hurt the mental health of our students and how maybe because we've heard several things from parents saying that my kid's afraid to go to school, my kid's afraid to be in the cafeteria because apparently maybe some students might know who the person involved is, but we don't on the outside because everything is keeping hush hush. How can that affect the mental state of some of our students moving forward?
Yeah, so if you think about the anxiety that is palpable throughout the entire community, and the feedback that we're getting is for mostly adults, right? So take that into context, right? And then try to apply that to a child that's still developing, a child that is 100% dependent on either their parents or the school to keep them safe. Not
Mhm.
only that, they have a low level of autonomy. You don't get to pick whether you go to lunch or not, or whether you go to PE or not, or what time you go to school. You're being told all throughout the day what you have to do, right? Not only are you being told what you have to do, which is a normal part of being a child, there's nothing that's being done to make sure that these students are being kept safely, right? So the children heavily rely on adults to be able to keep them safe. One of the things that is important to that is, I see a lot of young children with big things that affect them with in terms of anxiety, right? So it can affect their eating habits, it can affect their sleeping habits, it can affect how they learn in the classroom, how they socialize. One of the things that we see often is when the mental health of a child is not where it should be. It's not necessarily going to a child is not always going to be able to come to you and say, hey, I'm nervous about this. But what will happen is their grades will start to drop. They might start having behavioral problems in the classroom. They might, have problems with continence, right? Like they might start having accidents. They might not be able to pass a test. They might get an elevated level of test anxiety, right? And what will happen is you will notice that as a symptom and try to treat the symptom. Hey, this child is not behaving, right? This child is not behaving in school. And then there's further re-traumatization. Teachers might, just because that's kind of the scope of what they're working with, right? But if you see that a child is not turning in their homework or that a child is persistently late to school, you're going to treat that. But the real context behind this is that as a community, we have a responsibility to have a solid plan in place, a solid plan that gives the parents the reassurance to be able to at home hold down the fort and say, you're going to go to school tomorrow, you're going to learn tomorrow, and you're going to be safe. And I think the part of the problem here is that parents themselves aren't feeling safe right now. How can parents reassure their children that when they go to school things are going to be safe if the safety has not been prioritized? One of the things that was most disappointing for me was the defense about the lack of collaboration, right? I've had to learn throughout my role as a city leader. I have to work with everybody, right? And I'm willing to work with everybody. There is nothing about any one of our entities. Not one of our entities is 100% ready to do anything. School, it's a big system. There's a huge system with a lot of resources. They have their own police department, but that department works within context of a community. If there's something that's happening at that school, and that child is going to require medical treatment that requires coordination with Fort Duncan Regional Medical Center and with possibly stat, there's all of these things that have to be put into place to make sure that we are ready as a community, right? We have to collaborate with city police. We have to collaborate with the sheriff's department. We have to collaborate with other law enforcement agencies. There has to be constant and ongoing collaboration. And in order for true collaboration to happen, our egos are going to have to come down. When ego gets in the way of collaboration, our community is the one that suffers.
Now, let me ask you this. I know you just touched on real quick about STAT, the Fort Duncan Medical Center. Do you think these entities, and I know a lot of people, and maybe to some degree myself, we think that these things are not going to happen here, right? But I think ever since Uvalde, I think that opens up the box where shit that happened just less than an hour away. I think that puts us in a vulnerable spot where, hey, it happened so close to us. What it could happen to us now. Now, do you think these hospitals, and probably to no fault of their own, but are they ready for any type of situation that could happen? Are they equipped? Are they brought into the loop of these meetings that we're talking about? I know they have behavioral meetings that we saw Chief Amy Gonzalez heading up one of them just recently, and most notably, I didn't see the Eagle Pass Independent School District listed on there as an attendee. And it's disappointing as a parent. I am a parent. You have a nephew. What can we do moving forward to secure, in an event that something like this happens, that we got all of our ends covered here?
Yeah, so I think for those of us that work in these types of settings, we know, for example, that there's a difference in level of care between Fort Duncan and Stat, right? We also know that in order for us to prepare for mass casualties, there's things that the hospital or the medical entity needs to be equipped with a certain amount of blood if you need it, a certain amount of tools, a certain amount of staffing, a certain amount of crisis plan and intervention, right? Like there's so much that goes into it, that for one single entity to say we have it under control, right? Like we know everything, we're following our protocol, everything is under control. um I just I think at the bare minimum there needs to be communication. That's a bare minimum. We can't leave it just at communication, right? Because there has to be not just uh, there needs to be not just protocols just for the entity. There needs to be a community-wide crisis plan. When I first came on board, I got a chance to live through the impact of the COVID pandemic as an elected official. I had just been elected, and I got a chance to see the impact that this was having on us community-wide. We had to collaborate with with private businesses. We had to collaborate with HEB. We had to collaborate with all of these entities throughout the community, where whatever we were enforcing, that was being mirrored in the community as well. right? We also had to collaborate with the local healthcare entities. We had to collect data from them. We had to kind of track patterns and figure out what it is that we could do as a community to have everything work cohesively. It wasn't just about testing. It wasn't just about treatment. It wasn't just about transfers to another community. It was about the context of the entire community coming together to solve a problem that was community wide, right? In the past, one of my biggest efforts, and unfortunately it was a failed effort, but one of my biggest things is I wanted to establish a public health department because that's a function of the public health department. It brings entities together to be able to solve a problem. Communicable diseases, they don't stop at the hospital. That person that gets a disease, they're out in the community, they're going to a restaurant, they're going to a business, they are possibly having interactions with law enforcement. There's a whole bunch of things that happen community wide, and without that level of intricate communication and without the willingness to come to the table and say, this is a problem for all of us, this is a problem that doesn't just stop here, right? Because whatever's happening at the school, inevitably it's gonna impact us throughout the entire community. And now there's meetings, there's a lot of meetings that happen, there's a lot of fluff. And if you've ever seen the way that I approach my role on council, I often tell people I'm a very busy man. I don't like to waste my time. I don't want to be at a meeting that's not going to result in any deliverables. I don't want to be at a meeting where we just spent our time spinning our wheels and telling each other how great of a job every entity is doing and then not doing anything to move forward. There's a time and a place to to praise our entities and to say like, oh, everybody's doing a great job, but that can't be the extent of our meetings. That can't be the extent of the work that we're doing in the community. Now, one of the systemic issues that I've noticed for a long time with the school district is the misuse of our counselors. Right, the counselors at the elementary school, the counselors at the junior high, and even the high school. Now we have LPCAs, and as I mentioned, I'm very thankful for the work that they do, and I'm very thankful for the step that's been taken to move things forward. But why has it not been prioritized to invest into the mental health at a junior high level and an elementary school level? I've personally taken some time to attend some of the 504 plans for some of the students that I work with. Why? Because there is not enough personnel at the schools that allows them the opportunity to really take the time to understand the social and emotional learning of the children. We have counselors that are completely just pushing paperwork, stuck doing schedules and schedule changes and paperwork here and paperwork there, and this constant shift, always moving things not in the best interest of the students, but in the best interest of an ulterior motive. So this has so much more to do with so many things outside of this threat, right? This is a systemic issue that there's been time and money invested into making sure that our school district runs the way that it does. There's been personal favors and vendettas and all of these things that affect the learning of our children. And I know that parents are angry. I know that parents want to do something about it. Sometimes we just have to educate people on this is the way forward. This is how we hold our leaders accountable. For all you parents that are out there listening to me, I want to let you know you have so much power. You have so much power, and you also have a lot of responsibility. Your little ones are looking to you to be able to help to be able to shape their futures, right? And so my call to parents are this is the time to take action. Yes, I know that a lot of parents were upset with the Seguin incident, and a lot of parents were upset with the Serna incident. But this goes way beyond that. Our systems have been needing some help for a really long time. Our administration has needed accountability for a really long time. We have had to invest in changing these things, and the only way to get from here to there is to start to hold our leaders accountable.
No, yeah, and I think that your concerns that you just brought up, I think that that resonates a lot with the residents and our parents in our community because, being a news media that we are, we receive so many messages, calls, DMs, however, these people decide to reach out to us, emails, and they are currently concerned with what the school district is doing, not just with these threats that are happening that we had what in the span of 2 weeks about three different threats coming out, and then the shooting at the casino. I mean, that puts this in a situation where that was in our backyard. That's at the casino. If it happens at the casino, it could happen anywhere in our community as well. It just takes one time for somebody to, have a lapse of judgment, pull out a gun, and threaten any of school that we have here. And I think that a lot of stuff that you mentioned is that do we really have these kind of protocols to protect our students? Which it seems that, with just threats that we've had, these protocols have been, or lack of protocols, have been out for everybody to see. And now they're trying to secure everything as that we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this. But that's after the fact of all the situation that has happened before or in the weeks prior to. Um, the mental health thing moving forward, I know you're a big proponent of that. What do you think moving forward? And we won't keep you much longer anymore, but to end it a little bit, moving forward, what do you think needs to be implemented? Because I know you said some of these counselors at these schools, they're just pushing paperwork, unfortunately. We've heard comments before also from, high school counselors that are not even concerned about some of our students getting college degrees or what colleges to apply to. But you, as your profession, you're a professional in the mental health behavioral business. What needs to be implemented, or what do you think, or what would you suggest to the school district that should be implemented moving forward? And hopefully we can see some improvement in that area.
So I think the most basic thing that we can do is, number one, more training. Right. Let's start tapping into our workforce. We have a workforce that is talented. We have a workforce that is able and is willing, and we're drowning them in duties that are not necessarily for the function that they're doing. Now, as a counselor, I'm a clinician, right? As a counselor, there's things that can happen at the school setting that will foster mental health that don't necessarily have to be therapy, right? And so I'm not proposing that our counselors become, one-on-one clinicians. There's things that they can do within their scope. Number one, have more training and more investment into making sure that we're rolling out evidence-based programs from the perspective of school counselors. Right, there's tools that we can teach. There's things that we can do, to better equip our children with better coping skills, to better equip them with anger management, to making sure that we are noticing signs, early signs of abuse. Right, I've had several encounters with several counselors that don't even fully understand their duty as a mandated reporter. What that does long term, right? If you're not catching things, or you don't have time to address things where you're noticing signs of abuse, and you're not able to fully implement that, and to say, all right, I'm going to intervene as soon as possible because I have something else to do. That's a flawed system. That's a very flawed system, right? Because I often talk about, I'm a huge proponent of suicide awareness and suicide prevention. And when people say, like, oh, well, what are you doing for suicide prevention? I'm doing events, I'm doing public health events, I'm linking people to medical care, I'm linking people through to socialization, right? I'm doing all of these things that don't have the word suicide in them, because to me, that is what prevention and early intervention is, right? If you think about the relationship between a child that is being bullied, a child that is being abused at home, if you think about the relationship that that has to the type of aggression that's going to present in the future, there's a lot that counselors can do early on that doesn't even have to touch on actually doing work that centers around specifically school shootings. There's a lot that we could do in the prevention and early intervention stage. And the main resource, the main untapped resource that we have is we're not using our school counselors to the best of their ability. The next thing that I would do is I would invest, as I mentioned, into at least having one LPC in every single campus, making sure that every single student has access to mental health. Coordinating, I can't remember, I mean, I coordinate with some of the school counselors throughout town, right? But making sure that we're having ongoing communication about how best to link our students to services. We have Camino Real, we have a brand new organization called MSY. We have private clinics. We have resources outside of the community, right? How well are we equipped to know when and where and what type of student to send where, right? You're not going to send a student that's presenting with early on psychotic symptoms. You're not going to send them to a private clinic that might not be able to serve them in the best way that they need. You're not going to be able to send someone that has Medicaid to a certain type of setting, right? And so understanding, especially for counselors, understanding what our resources look like, what things we have in our community, and how we can best use them. That's that's a game changer. That's something that requires very little investment of money, right? I'm not asking for a budget overhaul. I'm asking for a reprioritization, a shift in our focus. Um, that's going to require a lot of thought and effort and coordination. But again, in order to do that, we have to maintain healthy relationships with every single entity within our community. We don't have to like everybody. We don't have to constantly be everybody's friend. But what we do have to do is we have to learn how to serve the same students that are out in the community, the same students that may or may not be suffering something at home. Those are the same students that are coming to our clinics. Those are the same students that need that help. So why not coordinate and be able to provide a safety net so that this doesn't become an issue in our community? This is not the first school threat. I hope that it will be the last, but maybe it won't. The world is changing. We know that this is not unique to Eagle Pass. But what is unique to Eagle Pass is the way in which we're handling it. What's unique to Eagle Pass is this lack of communication, this ego that prevents us from doing some self-reflection and saying, this is where I think the problem is, this is where I think the systemic issue is, and this is what I think I can do to solve it. From my perspective, for me, this is what I think that I can do better to make this situation better. Not pass and shift blame around, not defend your position on why you didn't have a protocol in place, or why, if you did have a protocol in place, why that protocol hasn't been communicated 100% effectively throughout the entire school district. Why is there confusion? There's a lot more that we can do that doesn't necessarily require a budget overhaul. When I sit here and I tell you that I wish that there were LPCs at every campus, I understand that that requires a massive budget overhaul. That's a lot of money. But we can take steps towards that. We can make sure there's multiple counselors at multiple locations that have not had a pathway to licensure, that have gotten their master's, gotten their clinical education, and have not been able to get their clinical hours. Why why can't we develop a program that addresses that systemic barrier? And the reason to that is it's never been a priority. No one has ever cared enough to say this is something that we can do, and especially that we if we can collaborate, this is something that we can do to solve this problem at a community-wide level.
Uh, wow, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head there. I think that there's been a lack of coordination, education, and implementation of having more mental health professionals, especially because I know when me and you grew up, you're not too far away in Asia from me. We didn't have these many problems around, and for whatever reason it is now, mental health issues have risen. Maybe there was a lack of attention to it before, and like our parents would be just fucking deal with it or whatever. And that's the way it was before, and I understand that. But nowadays, you become a parent, you become an uncle, and you want to make sure your kids have every opportunity to succeed in life. And nowadays, you're right. The community is not. We're Eagle Pass is not the same as it was 20 years ago when we were in high school. There's a lot of things that have changed, and a lot of opportunities for things to go, I guess south, to say, for a lack of better of the words. And it's just not the same ball game that we had. And I think that better preparing yourself for the ball game. I like to use a lot of sports reference because I'm a sports guy, but I mean you have to have that preparation before you get to the game, because at the game you don't know who's gonna get hurt. You don't know if the pitcher's gonna be able to go as long as he needs to. Uh, there's a lot of variables that go in, but having certain protocols, having certain people in position, like I think you're saying, these mental health professionals at the disposal of these elementary schools, these junior high schools, these high schools, to prevent anything from happening, where we're going to regret not having these things beforehand. We really thank you, because I think that a lot of these parents out here, and we've had a lot of audience out here, and I think you're the one who brought them onto our show, so we appreciate that as well. But I think people can really appreciate, a mental health professional coming out here and telling us exactly how it affects these children, these students, these teenagers moving forward, and what we can do to improve. I think the suggestion you just gave was 100, man. I don't know how else to say, but 100. Because yes, we do need more opportunities for our students, because they go through stuff. They go through stuff that we didn't go through before. And even if we did go through certain things, it's a lot more amplified nowadays than it was when we were growing up. And I think that if we don't take care of our students, we don't take care of our children, what world are we going to leave behind for them, right?
Mhm.
We are the parents. We are the guiders, the people that are guiding these students. And eventually, me and you, we're gonna be in some walker, some wheelchair, or something, and they're gonna be the ones taking care of us. So we can
Yeah.
only hope to do the best for them, right? I
Yeah.
know we've kept you a little bit long, and we don't want to keep you too much longer, Councilman. We really appreciate you joining us on. I know it was short notice, so we're very grateful. Any last words you want to say to our public out here? Again, we've had a pretty good response. I think you brought most of them, so I'm very glad we had you. But any last words you want to say to the crowd out here?
I just want to encourage the parents out there to not don't don't quit fighting, right? These are our kids that we're talking about, and sometimes we get so motivated by an incident such as what happened a few weeks ago, right? And everybody's up in arms, and then we try to do something about it, and it goes away. We cannot let our children down. We cannot stay silent. We cannot look the other way, and we cannot choose the easiest road. We have to make sure that we keep fighting. We have to make sure that we keep doing what's best for our children. And the best way to do that is to advocate, to learn about what is the process. How do we hold people accountable? How do we keep, you know, I think that a lot of what we do on social media is a great tool, but let's follow it up with different kinds of actions. You mentioned this meeting coming up, right? Making sure that we are speaking up continuously to the right people, right? That we are following up, that we're making sure that, hey, I brought up this concern. What is the next step? What have you done to address it? I really want to encourage discernment, right? Because there's a lot of things that happen that sometimes are meant to appease us. Sometimes people think that they know better than us, that they're doing what's best for us. But I want to encourage people to sharpen your discernment skills and to know that when someone's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. With one small quick action or some just doing something to pacify things, that's not the way to go, right? Our children need us. Our children, some of us are not able to speak for themselves. Some of our children are continue to be scared, continue to not be able to learn in the way that they need to because they don't feel safe, right? And that's with a lot of things. This is not just this school threat. There was a huge uproar about school fights going on last year,
Yeah,
and
there is.
and and there's been recent uproar about the low quality of special education, and I've witnessed the differences in the lack of investment in special education. This is a systemic thing. This is a thing that spans so many facets of our students' learning. And if we continue to just complain on Facebook, that's not going to get us anywhere, right? And so let's get educated, let's take the right avenues, let's keep pushing forward, and let's build a network of parents that are concerned and parents that want to do something, and let's continue to push that forward.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We had Councilman Elias Diaz, City Councilman, in City of Eagle Pass. We appreciate your time. I know time is very valuable for everybody. You do way, beyond anything that we've ever seen from some of the people here in Eagle Pass. We know we are involved in a lot of things. And I think that the community really appreciates that because it's a lot of people always want to do things, but they don't know how, or kind of, hey, we just kind of stick to our own. We don't want to cause too much uproar, but you're literally involved in a lot of things. So I think that on behalf of everybody, thank you for that. And, you took the time to come out here with us and have a quick little podcast with short notice. So we're really appreciative of that. But, thank you very much. And we look forward to possibly interviewing you again in the future. I think that,
Yes.
you provide a lot of valuable information for our community out here, the Maverick Times that follow. So we wish you nothing but the best of luck, and we'll be in communication.
Alrighty. Thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, just real quick, I do want to remind y'all before we end this podcast. Great podcast. Councilman Elias Diaz was hitting the nail on the head on a lot of the things that are going on, not just in the school district, but in our whole community. And it's very important us as not only residents, but parents of this community, parents of this school district, to voice our concerns. And if you have any issue voicing your concerns, there's a lot of retaliation. There's a lot of things going on as far as, you may not want to voice your concerns yourself. We are the voice for you guys, and there's many voices for you guys. You heard Elias Diaz, the councilman. He's not afraid to shy away from the issues and speak up against some of these things that we have going on in our community. And it's much appreciated when someone is willing to stick up, not just for their own cause, which of course he has a nephew he's defending in this thing, but also for a lot of you guys that don't speak up or cannot speak up for fear of retaliation. You do have support out here that is willing to back you guys up and speak for you if it comes to that. One of the things I want to mention right before we leave, guys, and I saw it in the comments, and we'll go through the comments. You know, you guys like put in the comments real quick. We'll go. Mariana Castellanos said, in other words, that's just simply taking accountability. Yes. The Q&A that was scheduled at 4:30 to 5:30 when all of you guys are working and wanting to hang out with your kids. Very, very iffy timetable on that. We have Christina saying this first thread was made at Picayos Elementary due to its not being secure. All this day, we haven't had any answers about what happened to the person who made the threat. And to know, excuse me about that, yawning a little bit, and to know that the threat was made the night before and still parents were not told until after they dropped off the students. Marilena, Mr. Diaz stated a shooting at the casino. The tribe has its own police department, yet still requested entities for assistance. Yes, absolutely. Joey, one of our best followers here, that's always commenting. He says, "North versus South, ¿pa qué lo hacemos?" He could be right. Lando, you can tell Armando Serna's favoritism because it's rich kids, okay? Lando again. So if this happened at Armando Serna, imagine what would happen to another elementary that aren't as important to the school district. And Joey responds by saying, "No seas mamón, güey. Aquí no hay rich people. It's all middle class working people." And then Lando hits him back with a, "You know what I mean. No saca." Joey, es la misma cagada cuando estamos chavalos, bro. Todos nomás se creen bien acá. They're having a little back and forth between Lando and Joey here. Cuando estamos chavalos era el glass con los niños de la nice. You can see the favoritism over EPJ over Memorial. Joey says, Lando, I went to Austin Elementary con todos los que estaban en la Loma de la Cruz. Hey, Joey, you got out of that school with the ones from Loma de la Cruz. Much respect, Joey. Joey, let's educate people on how bad of a job they're doing at the city of Eagle Pass. I would agree, Joey, but I think that the bad that's coming out has really nothing to do with the city council or the mayor. I would have to say that is coming directly from the administration. And what I mean by administration, I mean the city manager, Homero Valderas. Homero Valderas has done so many wrong steps, procurement policies not followed, severance pay that was never approved by the city council. There's just things that, I personally like the guy. I'm not gonna lie. I really like the guy. I've known him for a while. We've known each other for a while, not growing up or anything, but as adults, the guy, I like the guy as a person. The only thing is that as an administrator, I think that there is a lot left to be desired. There's a lot of protocols and policies that have not been followed. And it's disappointing because he's the highest paid city manager that the city of Eagle Pass has had, and I think that he may not be right forth or truthfully telling our governing body, the city council, everything that is needs to be done. And I think they use legal counsel as a scapegoat about a lot of the things that they do. Now, the independent auditor things, whenever they switched over, whenever you do anything with professional services, you are required to receive multiple sources of qualifications, not a price, not a quote, but you are supposed to receive multiple qualifications from multiple different public professional services, and that just was not done. And there's nothing personal about the city manager. I personally like the guy. He's a great guy. I've talked to him many times. Back in the day, we used to play Madden and stuff like that. And he's a good guy. I've talked to him. I still conversate with him, having to deal with our public, working with the county, working with the city type of thing. But it's just, many people need to know that the people that are screwing things up is not the governing body of the city of Eagle Pass. Yet it is administration that has taken upon themselves to do a few things that, if you research, they're not legal. If you do your research, you can easily pick apart a lot of the things that they're doing there at the city of Eagle Pass. Going through some comments here, there's a bunch of them. Christina, was a meeting moved to tomorrow instead of Tuesday? Yes. Now, this is one thing I do want to touch on real quick, is that yes, absolutely. We posted, if you go back to our feed on the Maverick Times page, you'll see that the regularly scheduled meeting was on the 14th on Tuesday. This is from the calendar that is brought out for the school district for the year, right? This is already set at the beginning of the year when they're going to have their regular meetings. But in this case, why all of a sudden was the regular meeting changed from the 14th back to the 13th, which is Monday, which is tomorrow, Columbus Day, a holiday, where there's a lot of people that, travel, and they're not going to be coming back until Monday evening. Why would the school district change the date of the school board meeting? Why do you think the only person that has the authority to do something like that is the city manager with board approval? I'm sorry, superintendent with the board approval. That is the only person that is able to switch the date of these meetings. Why would Superintendent Samuel Mijares and the school board, all 7 of them, agree to changing the date from the 14th, which is Tuesday? Now we learn that the meeting will be Monday on the 13th at 6 p.m. We encourage parents to get out there. You have 3 minutes. You have to sign up, so you got to go about 15 minutes. I would show up at 5:30, guys, just so there's no bullshit that they give you. I would show up 30 minutes before at 5:30 so you can list yourself up, so you can list yourself in there and state your concern. You're going to have 3 minutes. By law, they have to go through every single resident concern. And if they don't, you guys contact us and we'll take care of that, because that is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. And it doesn't take us but 5 minutes to make a letter to the Texas Education Agency, do a formal complaint. If your voice is not getting heard, we will make sure that Mijares hears the voices of the Texas Education Agency. The ones that can come down here, take his job, and remove all the current school board members. That's why it's very important you guys submit any type of complaint that you may have to the Texas Education Agency. You guys have the power as citizens to take care of that. Scrolling through a little bit. Also, I could not find any videos of the Q&A. Is it true no recordings were allowed? That is 100% correct. Media was told that they were not allowed to record, live stream any portion of the Q&A session that was done by Mijares from 4:30 to 5:30 to make sure you guys could not show up. This thing keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And the only people that could do anything about it is you, the taxpayers, the residents, the parents of the Eagle Pass Independent School District. The meeting is tomorrow, October 13th, Monday, Columbus Day, and it starts at 6 o'clock. If you're not aware, it's at 587 Madison Street. That's right across from the Plaza de San Juan. There's a building there where you're able to enter, and you can go in, and that's where the meetings are being held. Y'all make sure and show up. It is very important and critical that you guys voice your concerns about how administration continues to fail our students, our district, and our community. This was the Maverick Times podcast, episode number 59. We had special guest Elias Diaz joining us tonight. I am your host, Isaac Reese, the managing editor of the Maverick Times. Thank you for joining in. We wish you nothing but the best. Remember about the meeting. Voice your concerns tomorrow night, Monday, October the 13th at 6 p.m., 587 Madison. Be sure to show up. You get 3 minutes. You got to sign up. You get 3 minutes to state your case to the entire EPISD school board. Hopefully something can get done, something can get resolved. We're hopeful. Only you guys have the power. And if you guys are the strongest voice for your students, there is no other person that's going to have a voice or give a voice to your children, your students. I encourage you to show up tomorrow, 6 p.m., 587 Madison. Voice your concerns. That's all I have for today, guys. Isaac Reese. I am the managing editor of the Maverick Times. If you haven't already liked this post, please like this post and share this post. We got to get every single parent aware of the situations that are going down at the Eagle Pass Independent School District. That's it. I'm out. Thank you for joining us tonight.